Hello and welcome to an all-new Geek World Order video. Randy here, and today we're continuing our look into the first season of X-Men 97 as it comes out episodically. The series available on Disney Plus streaming. Today we're talking about the third episode of the season, Fire Made Flesh. So before we get into the episode, let's talk about the intro sequence. Basically, they're kind of using it to kind of highlight the focus character. In this case, it's Jean and the Jean clone from the previous episode. Or the duplicate Jean, sorry. Well, but yeah, it's a clone. We'll learn that later in the episode. There are some recreated scenes from the Phoenix Saga and some other episodes featuring Jean. Also of note in the credits is that there's a recreation of the scene where, in the original run of X-Men, it's Jubilee running up to a chain link fence being chased. That scene is now replaced by the exact same scene, but it's now Roberto. So, it seems he is going to be a least recurring character on this series, probably in that younger mutant role that Jubilee had. So, just a little interesting note there. So we open up into the episode. We're leaving off where the last episode ended. We have Jean and Jean. The second Jean is kind of laying on the bed. She's being attended to by Hank. And of course, well, obviously we've got questions. Things are trying to be figured out here. So who we currently believe is the real Jean, or the Jean we've known through the first few episodes of this series so far, basically probes this girl's mind, kind of figures out they share a lot of memories. So we're not getting a lot of answers here, but we do see this other Jean in a lab. She wakes up and she makes her escape. She walks by Crazy Eddie's TV dealer, sees the press conference with Magneto, of course from the previous episode, the trial of Magneto, and makes her way back to the X-Mansion. Yeah, so basically we're trying to figure it out, and just to differentiate them somehow, Morph goes, let's call her Jean Doe. Everyone agree? Huh? Raise your hand. And then he morphs into Spiral so he can raise like 6 hands to get some more votes his way. Which, maybe there's some foreshadowing there. We've kind of seen morphs. These cameo morphs he's doing kind of lead into some events, so there might be some, so we'll see. Maybe if that leads to anything. So Hank comes in and he techs the tech. He does the science stuff. And through a various series of tests, including one involving gamma rays, he finds out that the Jean that is lying in the bed is older. And apparently is the real Jean. And yes, the Jean that we have known through at least the first few episodes of this series is in fact a clone, and who has the younger DNA. So, obviously, we are very confused. This Jean, sort of has a little bit of a meltdown. She grabs the baby and takes off her room. So Scott eventually goes after her, trying to be like, hey, everything's gonna be okay, it's alright. And she kind of calls him out, like, Scott, you're a bad liar. You are a terrible liar. But yeah. So, Cyclops leaves, lets her be alone for a little bit. And we just hear this really creepy voice calling out to her. Now, if you are familiar with the original X-Men, the animated series, you know this voice immediately. And we learn who this is very quickly. Because we go to the lab, Beast is doing more of his tests, he's running more genetic testing. Bishop, apparently his time travel band is almost fixed, almost ready to go home. So, probably going to be some more story bits for him. But then Beast has a realization, and he says his catchphrase, "Oh my stars and garters." His little exclamation of excitement. But unfortunately, this turns into a bit of despair as he's like, yeah, Cyclops, you might want to go get the baby. Because, I figured out who created this clone. Because scientists leave their work behind, they leave a signature. And, he says that this work could be described as sinister. That's right, folks. Mr. Sinister is the one behind the clone here. So we go back to... Yeah. So basically, we cut back to the scene in Jean's room where she's with the baby, and Sinister pretty much lays it all out that, yes, he was responsible for it. It goes back to his plan to get the DNA of Scott and Jean. Their offspring would be the first catalyst in kind of a mutant future, a perfect mutant. So yeah, at this point, things pretty much go absolutely bonkers. Sinister takes control of Jean because at this point, the clone does have the the red crystal in her head. So Sinister activates it. He takes over. She's under his control now, and we start getting just the impressive visuals of the episode. She transforms into the costume, which of course is the Goblin Queen costume, which she will call herself the Goblin Queen later in the episode. So she does the transformation. So we cut to the Danger Room, and we see Gambit, Wolverine, and Morph coming out of the Danger Room. They're being guys. They're joking around with each other. And then Morph's like, all right, let me see who's got the Danger Room next. He kind of scrolls through the schedule, and Magneto and Rogue have the Danger Room booked for basically about the next 24 hours. So they give him a hard time. Gambit goes off. Wolverine goes off. And just Morph's just told to hit the showers. Oh boy, so we start just a massive series of events through this episode. We kind of start the various dream sequences, and these just are insane. So first we cut to kind of the living room of the mansion. Roberto and Jubilee are watching a movie. This one turns into like The Ring. The person in the movie comes out, and it becomes this like long-armed monster thing, and it also takes the form of Roberto's mother, which so basically it's kind of his nightmare. We see Gambit heading down the hall, and he walks into the room where basically Magneto's office, and the scene is very much morphed into like the Savage Land. Magneto and Rogue are standing there in their Savage Land attires. Great nod to the comics. Yeah, so Gambit leaves. He ain't gonna unsee that. Then Morph hits the showers, and then all of a sudden he hears somebody in the shower. Turns out to be Wolverine. He's joking around, like, oh, hey, Logan, need help with those hard to reach spots? Yeah, and then it turns into Sinister, which of course we know Morph has the connection with Sinister. In Night of the Sentinels, he was left to die. Sinister found him, took control of him. So yeah. So Sinister still haunts Morph's nightmares. Whew. So then we go into the baby's room. Cyclops and Bishop come in, and they are attacked by the crib and the chair in the room. The nightmare demon in this place takes the form of Professor Xavier, and he's chiding Scott for not being a good leader, giving him demerits. One of the other pieces of furniture turns into Bishop's sister, Shard, who we saw in the previous X-Men series. During one of the last episodes of season 4, the big 5-parter event. Basically saying, hey, you failed me, things like that. And then Beast, oh my god. We get like a scene from, oh, what's the film? I'm sorry that I'm blanking on it. But basically he kind of like opens the door, there's an elevator, and there's like big eye creature thing in the elevator. He's just like, well, one of us has the wrong floor. So eventually everyone makes it kind of back to the central area. Everything is just going insane. And then Wolverine, and just kind of a very interesting use of how they can use language in television. Wolverine says, what the heck is going on? I know, right? I'm surprised they had to say heck. But then Morph is like, don't you realize we're in hell? So a little bit of an interesting use of language and how things are allowed to go on TV there. Yeah. So things just go even wackier, where they basically descend into the madness. They form these like flying dragon creatures are going around. Beast refers to one as a Jabberwocky. So we get some actually interesting fight scenes. You get Bishop throws Beast into Wolverine to knock him out of the way. But then we get one of those cool power-up team moves. So Bishop gets to be all cool, like, Cyclops, hit me. And Cyclops uses his optic blast just to power up Bishop. It's such a cool combination. I loved it. Great use of their powers. And Bishop being able to absorb the power and then dish it back out more substantially. So yeah, that was awesome. And then as he's unleashing this blast of energy from himself that Cyclops powered up, and he's like, time for an exorcism. Because there's a lot of horror references in this episode. Like I said, I've probably even missed a few of them myself. But yeah, we've had references to the Ring and the Jabberwocky and the very different hellscapes and nightmare scenarios. So the creepy doll furniture. So I'm sure there are references to other movies, like I said, I probably missed. But just a great horror themed vibe for this whole episode. And just really works well with a Mr. Sinister story. They're really taking advantage of their art style, modern technology to really just wow with the visuals in this episode. So eventually we get the actual we get the real Jean coming in. So she busts in and uses her psychic powers and kind of restores order to chaos. So we get down to the infirmary, and basically just about everyone's busted up at this point. Magneto and Rogue walk in like nothing's happened, because apparently nothing happens to them in the danger room, apparently. So we kind of get our, Cyclops fills them in on what's going on. It's like, yeah, it's definitely Sinister. Roberto's like, who's Mr. Sinister? So Morph gives us the exposition, kind of the backstory on him. Which, I mean, fair. If you're watching this show for the first time and you don't have a lot of knowledge of the X-Men animated series, yeah, you need a little bit of the exposition. But they keep it really quick so it doesn't, slow down the episode. So Magneto tells, I believe it's Rogue, Beast, Wolverine to stay behind, tend to the wounded. And Magneto's going to lead a strike team, which is basically, it's him, Cyclops, Morph, and Bishop. Because Morph offers to take him, since he still has a bit of that connection to Sinister. There's enough of the bond between them that he just knows where Sinister is. So we do cut to Sinister's lair, his mansion, in a lab. Of course, we get all just the lightning, the creepy lighting, Sinister being creepy himself because it's Sinister. But we see him talking to Nathan, and we see him put him in a vial of green liquid. So he's just basically becoming like a science experiment at this point. He's like, hey, kind of giving the exposition about his plans, how this child's going to bring about the perfect mutant, basically. But first, he needs to become invulnerable. So yes, we'll get more on that in a little bit. So at this point, we get our strike team coming in, and overall, this is a more excellent animation. And my notes pages are messing up on me here, but yeah. So a number of things happen in this battle. I know the first thing is basically that they fight. Part of the battle, the Goblin Queen, who has finally introduced herself as the Goblin Queen, takes over Morph and uses Morph to fight Bishop. So we get another one of Morph's cameo morphs. So first, and they're two different forms. First, he morphs into the base form of Ileana, who is the sister of Colossus and a mutant herself, apparently with a lot of magical powers. And then the second form, her mutant form, Magic. Just simply called Magic. So they use that to fight. She eventually takes Bishop out with Morph, knocks Cyclops down, and then she goes one-on-one with Magneto. So he's using his powers, and she's basically countering them. Like, it's taking some effort, but she's actually able to turn some of the metal against him, and actually, lands a few cuts on him. Eventually overpowers him and knocks him down, too. So, yeah. Very, very strong mutant here. So we cut back to the X mansion where Logan is tending to Jean. And she kind of wakes up, but she's been having hallucinations. She's not really able to control her powers very well. So, of course, Logan just kind of sits there and he's like, Jean, focus. And he actually allows Jean to probe his mind to help her focus her powers and get back on track. So, and I think in this moment, I think Jean had some ideas about what she meant to Wolverine and how he feels about her. But based on her reaction, there is no question about what he feels. And she's even like, I mean that much to you? He's like, yes, and more. So pretty much she's able to focus herself. They have a nice little moment here, whatever. But yeah. So basically, she's like, she ties her hair up. She's about to go into battle. And Beast is like, hold on. Your body is not ready for this. She's like, yeah, I don't need my body for this. And she straight up astral projects herself over to that mansion. And yeah, we get the fight scene between her and the Goblin Queen. Everything is insane. We kind of go through some of the memories of her life and the things she went through. Notably was her first encounter with Charles Xavier and her losing her best friend in a car accident that kind of triggered some of her events. Although, one of the things I don't know if I ever noticed, and I think it was in the original series, but Jean has this doll she carried around her as a child. It was a Cyclops. Like the mythical Cyclops with the one eye, and I'm like, okay, there's some foreshadowing there for you. So, overall, eventually, she's able to overpower the Goblin Queen and actually destroys the crystal that Sinister is using to control her. So basically, at this point, since there's no control crystal, her and Cyclops team up. They're headed straight down to the basement, into the lab to face Sinister. And they do. They manage to land some blows on Sinister. We see Cyclops slice him open. And of course, he starts to regenerate because he has healing powers. But eventually, Cyclops blasts open the chamber, grabs Nathan. Sinister's basically like, yeah, no, we're not done here. And he just kind of Homer Simpsons it into the dark. But yeah. So at this point, we learn that, and we see that Nathan is being covered in some kind of sores. These are 90s style tech graphics. But we do learn that Nathan is infected with the techno-organic virus. Yes, the same one that Henry Gyrick tried to infect and, Professor Xavier with. And he tried to, Gyrick basically tried to infect himself to act as a martyr in his anti-mutant legislation, which never worked. So, at this point, there's really Beast can't do anything. He doesn't have a cure. At least in this time. But there might be a cure available in another time. So, he makes the final adjustments needed to Bishop's time band. But there's really only enough power in it to send Bishop back and Nathan. So, definitely a hard choice that's got to be made here. Scott is having a mental breakdown. He's like, I don't want to abandon the kid. I don't want to be like my father. And he just kind of leaves. So, eventually we see them, we cut to a scene where outside, Goblin Queen Jean is comforting the baby. She's actually talking to Nathan telepathically because you see the little glow on top of their heads. And you see, she's basically pretty much directly mentally telling him, hey, you're gonna be okay. So she hands him to Bishop and they head to the future because Bishop knows a guy. So then, we head over to the two Jeans have a moment. The one Jean has her bag. She's decided to leave. She's going to start a new life. And she finally reverts to her name in the comics. She says, call me Madeline Pryor. And then she walks off. So, don't know what that's going to do. And then we cut to what I presume is Scott and Jean's room. Yeah, they're probably going to have a very awkward conversation at this point. Because once again, are Scott and Jean actually married? Did they get married? Was it the clone that married him? Well, we know it's whatever point that Jean got pregnant. That was the clone. There is some speculation as to when that may have happened. We don't know if, how far, how back. Was this such a long-term plan that the clone was the Phoenix? Or the Dark Phoenix? Or both? Was it during the Phalanx saga? So, a number of options there. Now, to close out the episode, we head over. We're in the state of Texas. Storm's at a bar. She's having a drink. And she's in her black punk rock look from the comics. So, awesome that she's got the punk rock look to go with the mohawk. And a gentleman comes up to her and introduces himself. And it's Forge. So, this is the present day Forge, not the future Forge that Bishop is going back to. And we are going to lead into some events because we do know one of the episode titles for the season is Life Death, which is the story that's being adapted where Storm loses her powers and Forge is the one that helps get her powers back. He introduces himself. He's like, hey, I want to help. And that's where we end the episode. So overall, this was a fantastic episode. This was fun. It was, the visuals were stunning, and they told a lot of story. Um, from what I was able to research, because I haven't read a lot of the actual comics, this story, the Madeline Pryor, Goblin Queen, Nathan's summer story, took a fair amount of time in the comics, and to boil it down to one very fast-paced episode and get a lot done and not drag and still build a lot of parts to it and tell the essentials to what they were really just trying to hit the key points they needed to. This episode came off surprisingly well. So we're 3 episodes into the season, and all 3 have been fantastic so far. Just X-Men 97 has absolutely killed it. It's been a great series so far, and another strong episode. I love this episode. What did you guys think of the episode? Did you like it? What were your issues? Were there some Easter eggs or references I missed it? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it. Of course, leave a comment. All the things that help the algorithm, and I will see y'all in the next one.